Hi guys, Chris here with Super Savvy Travelers. Hey, I thought I'd touch bases with you because I was just on an interview with Reno from One Stop Abruzzo, and we talked a lot about the medical care in Italy. Now that interview that we did together is going to drop probably next week because there's a lot to edit. We talked about a lot of things. We showed some beautiful properties. If you get a chance, pop over to One Stop Abruzzo on YouTube and check out Reno. He's got a really nice channel over there. But I was here to talk to you about Italian medical care versus American medical care. This is just my observation and experience. I've had a lot of experience with American medical care here in the U.S. And about a year ago, a little over a year ago, I slipped and fell in Italy, in Santa Domenica Talau, and really broke my ankle. I mean, I dusted it big time, and I knew it the minute I fell. I was going, okay, this is not a torn ligament. I was hoping it was. Or a sprained ankle. Or, oh, no. I broke a bunch of bones in there and whatnot. It just was not, it wasn't something that was going to heal up on its own. And I'm like, okay, well, let's get the firsthand view of Italian medical care here. So initially I went to Belvedere Marittimo, to the hospital there, and met with the surgeon. They go, yeah, it's una bella frattura, she said, which meant, okay, it's dusted. Bella frattura means a beautiful fracture. I don't think it was beautiful, but it was a fracture. So I went from there, and I had told Pete, please contact Nick Metta at Studio Legale Metta, because previously we had done an interview with Dr. Andrea Armenio, and I just loved what he had to say. I loved his passion and commitment. We love Nick. We've always felt really cared for with these guys, so we asked their advice. And God bless them. Dr. Armenio called over to the hospital in Altamura in Puglia. He got me set up with a fine surgeon over there. The man was just brilliant. So I went by a scary ambulance ride, which was also quite painful because my ankle was not, I didn't have a cast, I didn't have a boot, I didn't have anything. So every time we went over a bump, I would yell. They'd be like, Senora, are you okay back there? I'm like, no, I'm not okay. Slow down. Don't hit the bumps like that. They're like, okay. They got a little more careful, but not much. But the fact that I came by ambulance and came in and was admitted to the hospital through the emergency room, that meant that all of my medical costs were paid for. And we were ready to pay because, it was a pretty big deal. I was in the hospital a week. I had to have my foot up for a week before the surgery could be done. And then I had the surgery. And then I left the hospital. I had follow-up care, which it was all very eventful, and that kind of thing. But there are some differences, and the first difference I will say is when you're in the hospital, at least when I was in the hospital in Altamura, I felt like they were caring for a family member. They were so good to me and so nice. The food was pretty good. Not a lot of salt, as you can imagine. And I'm sorry, but the coffee, that's the only place in Italy that the coffee was bad. So Pete had to come drive out to Altamura Hospital with 2 cappuccinos, one for me and one for my roommate. And keep us happy with the coffee there. But I had a fabulous roommate. We were watching cooking shows together and having a lovely time. Her family brought her all kinds of wonderful snacks, and she shared them with me. It was actually kind of nice. And then we had the surgery. Now, the surgery was much like any other surgery, very much the same protocols and things like that. The people were just so wonderful. And the doctor was very sweet at the end, checking on me to make sure I was okay. After the surgery, I left the hospital and, of course, went back to recover and had a follow-up when they took out the stitches. Now, let me tell you something about Italy. They don't do opioids over there. Mostly what I had was really strong ibuprofen and really strong acetaminophen. And I found out that if you sort of toggle those back and forth a little bit, you can do pretty well. Initially, I was very against taking the ibuprofen because they just burned my stomach. But they gave me like a Prilosec thing, and miraculously, it did not affect my stomach at all. I don't know how that happened, but it worked. So I was able to toggle those back and forth. It wasn't completely without pain, but also I didn't get that awful feeling that you get from opioids, which I just hate, because then you have to take the laxative, and then you got to take the nausea prevention, and then you got to take the this and the that, and then you feel really dispersed. I hated that stuff. It was a much better outcome as a result of not taking the opioids. And to be honest, I didn't need them. I could sleep at night. The pain level was manageable, and overall it was okay. So then I went back to Scalea and I met with Dr. Bergamo, who's the orthopedic surgeon there, And he also runs the physical therapy facility there in Scalea, where they did a lot of treatment for a lot of the Italian soccer teams, and they get them back on the field in 90 days. He's like, in 90 days, we get these guys that bad fractures and they're back on the field. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not doing that. But they were very aggressive, but very good. And I have to tell you, the difference between Italian physical therapy and American physical therapy is kind of summed up into this one thing where my first day in there, they put me on a bicycle, and I'm riding the little bicycle to nowhere. And Marco comes in. Marco's my favorite guy there. And he goes, would you like some crostino? I think it was crostino. Oh, that was the name of it. But it's a cake. It's like a little torta cake with fruit, and it's a dessert or a breakfast. So I'm sitting on the bike, in the gym, right? This is me riding the bike, sorry. Riding the bike, eating cake. And I'm like, this is so Italy. I just love it. Nowhere else have I been in the gym and somebody said, you need a piece of cake. I can see looking at you. You need a piece of cake. So that was lovely. And I will say that everybody who saw the x-rays after the surgery, they were like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. And kind of the equivalent of, when your dad goes to Home Depot and he buys a bunch of stuff that hangs off the car, and you got the red flag in the back, and he puts all the ropes all around it, and then he flicks it one last time and he goes, that's not going anywhere. Well, I can imagine that the surgeon over in Altamura did the medical equivalent of that. Flicked it and said, this ain't going nowhere. And that was confirmed because the doctors who saw it said, you're never going to break that ankle again. You may break above it or below it, but that ankle's not going to go anywhere. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to break above it or below it. So anyway, the upshot is I had great care in Italy, and I ended up not even paying for it, which I was kind of like, we were prepared to pay because, we pay for things. But no, there's no bill. And there's no bill because it was an emergency type situation. So there you go. I mean, I could go on and on about the situations that occurred in America. Some of them were pretty not good. About the great care I got in Italy. There are pluses and minuses. The stitch removal, they didn't use an anesthetic, and the stitches were tight, and it was pretty painful. But it only lasted for about half an hour, and I was okay after that. So there you go. Don't be afraid of medical care in Italy. From what I've heard from other people and my own personal experience, wonderful care, great doctors. Don't worry about it. If you need medical care in Italy, you're going to be fine. So I hope that helps, guys. See you soon.